Hey there. I've been working on a little project that has been in the planning stages for a long time today. And guess what? I am going to start it all over again. And I'm glad I only got as much done as I got done. And my kitten is not working real well on this. Stood back from it, took a break, said I'll come back to it tomorrow, and shared it with my sister, and she pointed out the obvious. So let me show you, and then I'll show you, well, let me just show you. Here we go. So I've wanted to stencil this floor since I painted it. This is the stencil I chose. And I'm stenciling it with the wall paint, the green wall paint. Looks very yellow here, but it is the same. It's the same paint from the green walls. And I spent a good deal of time getting the center of the room, lining it all up, figuring it out, measuring it. But I didn't want to start here at the door. But I wanted the center medallion to line up with the center of the room. Well, you can see where the center medallion is over there, can't you? Because I have the bookshelves, the cube shelves lined up with the center of the room, and that center doesn't line up. I don't know what the heck I did. I don't think my room is real square, and I don't know. That was the first thing that when I stood up and looked at it, I went, oh, that ain't right. And then, so I was already debating painting over it and starting again once I realized that I had made that mistake. And I don't know how I made that mistake. But I did, because I did measure more than once. But still, I don't know. But then my sister pointed out that it would be less noticeable if things don't line up exactly. And it would look, there's something off here. So I've been measuring and marking and doing what I can, but I think what needs to happen is that instead of having them like tiles, they need to stagger. And I don't know if they need to stagger in the same distance. I don't know. See, now I have to remeasure to make everything. Do I, have them the same horizontal apart, so there's this big gap here, or do I scooch it up in there tighter like that, which doesn't change it by a whole lot, maybe an inch, or even closer in, like that. So that's probably what I need to do. Yeah, see, it's hard to tell because, well, here, this might help. Will this help? Will this make it worse? Yeah, that'd make it worse. Never mind. I needed to do like 3 sample boards or a bigger sample board, but I think that's what I need to do. I need to paint it over, and then I need to stagger them. And so instead of these big empty diamonds here, the space is filled in. And that will mean that at the edges, I will have halves. And I'm going to deal with that when I get to it, because the center, or the second row, will be 1, 2, 3, will only be 4 medallions wide. Yeah, that just doesn't look straight to me. I think I was using my floorboards as a guide, and I don't think the floorboards are square. Anywho, so that's the creative process in process. I think a lot of creative people and makers and doers just show you the end result, or just do enough to show you after they figured it all out, which I guess kind of was what I was doing because I didn't film today while I was working on this, and I was just kind of trying to figure it out, but I've also learned about myself that I tend to, when I'm trying to film and work, sometimes I can only pay attention to one thing at a time, and I screw it up, ironically, as I screwed this up. So I am going to just paint over. And I'm probably going to have to paint over more than one coat. Even though this is really lightweight, thin painting on here, it's still gonna show through it probably if I don't. Now you could say, well, why don't you just leave the first row and stagger the second row? But like I said, I don't like the alignment in general. So I'm going to do it all over. Okay, day 2 of painting, stenciling the floors. And there was a day gap in between because yesterday a friend and I went to Montgomery again to do a little shopping. So that will be another little snippet, maybe at the end of this video or in my weekly wrap up or something on the goodies. If you look really carefully in the background, you might be able to spot one of them, but I'm not going to spoil it other than that. Okay, I did spoil it, sorry, but there's more. There's so much more. That's just the little teaser. We found the best store. Anyhow, I am going to turn the camera around and take you through the process of what I learned. Okay, so here we are. I have found the center of the room. Well, I don't know if to be honest, I'm not sure it's 100% the center of the room, but what it is the center of the windows across the room. And that's what's important to me when I walk in the room, that the center row of medallions is lined up with the center of the window. And since I'm not going all the way to the wall anyway, I'm kind of almost doing like an area rug type stencil with this pattern, I am not going to worry about how square the room is and if it's square to the room, because square to the window is most important. Yesterday when I was went to Home Depot, I had to return the light that didn't come until the day before yesterday. Didn't come until Tuesday. So it definitely did not come in time for the electrician. I returned that and I got this laser level. And so I have, Maya may not be able to see it on the camera, that there's a red laser line lining up with between the windows over there and down the center of this medallion stencil. It came with this cool protractor attachment to it, and so I have the 0 degree mark lined up with this space crack between the floorboards, because again, if the whole thing is just off by like not square with the floorboards, even if the floorboards aren't square to the room, which I'm not sure if they are, it's 135 years old, whatever. I want it square with the floorboards. Again, we have to assume that they're all square to each other, but we've got to start somewhere. And then it comes out at the 90 degrees. So I know it's at 90 degrees to the floorboards and it's centered through the window. Now the mistake I made when I did this, the first 2 rows and I had to paint over, was I did my 5 across and then I just did this. This time, what I'm going to do is I think I'm going to do the row from the window down the middle of the room, this way, all lined up. And then the next row will be staggered this way. So then it'll be a long row this way, then a stagger, and then another row. So they will interlock somewhat. There'll be spaces between them, but they won't be in a group. They'll be, you know what I mean? I don't know if I'm saying things right, but I know what I mean, and that's what's important. And I got up this morning. I don't know what I did in my little notebook. Woke up early this morning, laying in bed, and couldn't stop thinking about like how I wanted to lay this out. So I drew little bubbles in a notebook. They're not very to scale or anything, but it gave me an idea of how I wanted to line it up. And the reason I'm going to do this way long and then the next one staggered instead of going across and then staggering this way is because I think I got to double check is that I will end up with full medallions along the side of the room. And if I decide to do any half medallions, there will only be 3 of them, and they will be at the short ends of the wall instead of the long ends of the wall. That's what I've decided. That's how I'm working this out. So, and having this dude is going to help me a lot, because once I paint one, I will have my center each way, and I just line this guy up with the center. So then like when I go to do the next one, I could, like if I wanted to do the next one over here, I could line this up with this center. Come on, line up. Across here, make sure it's straight across. Oops, it's not. There we go, that's pretty close. And now this is a sample, but then I could line the corner of the stencil up right here, and then I could do these 2 stencils, a stencil here and a stencil here. Ostensibly. What I will have probably still get a little chalk pencil and make some corner marks just so I can double check my registration. At least that's the plan. So let me show you real quick how we stencil. And I did this the other day. I have this stencil brush, and it didn't clean very well. And partly because when you're stenciling with an almost dry brush. I also did not put more adhesive on the back of this, and we're gonna hope that it doesn't. That's the other thing. I have this cardboard box here, and I have a temporary spray adhesive. I put the stencil in there and I spray it so I don't get spray adhesive all over the room or all over my floor, and that helps it stick down so you don't have leakage. I'll turn this off for now. But then I also found this package of cosmetic sponges, so I think I'm gonna try those. So I have not, but you want to get it so there's almost no paint. I might have dried it out too much on whatever you're using to stencil. The brush, sponge. I think I'm gonna like the looks of the sponge better and have less likelihood of it bleeding. And it's better to do really light, thin coats like this and then go back over it to darken the color up than it is to try to get the color, the density of color that you want to start with. And the beauty of stenciling, thing I like about stenciling, and especially on a rough surface like this floor, is that it's gonna look kind of rough and textured. Now the brush will get into those little nooks and crannies a little better, but I could always just come back with an artist brush and fill those in as well. Now this sponge is really small, so this might take me, but you know what, let's be patient. Let's not try to finish the whole thing in a second and a half. And ongoing challenge of keeping animal hair. I vacuumed this room a couple times, and I've blocked it off from the dog so that he can't come in and shed all over it. But it's inevitable in my household, and if it weren't the animal's hair, it would probably be my own. So now, if you're using like really small stencil brushes or stencil sponges, which I could use like the other end of this, I could do different colors on this stencil. And I thought about it because I have this pretty sea blue green cabinet that I painted over here with it, and I have a part of the quart of chalk paint left, and I thought about adding that color in this stencil somewhere, but then I thought, I know inevitably at some point I'll quit paying attention and I'll stencil the wrong color in the wrong spot. So I don't want to. I just want, this is kind of meditative if you get a rhythm going. So that was a little heavy-handed. So I don't want to have to think outside of laying it out, which now that I've given that a really good think, now I can just kind of work. I did put in an order today at the big blue box store for food and other things, and I added in there some sponge daubers stencil brushes. So I think if this works, those will work better because I'll even have a handle. But these are nice cosmetic sponges because they have very little texture. So you're really getting a nice, soft color. Soft texture to it without, this was giving me like stipple brush, you know, spotty, and I'd have to really, I didn't really want that look. That look is good for some stencils, but I didn't really want it for this. Now this is how I do it with acrylic paints or latex paints. This is just the same wall paint that I used on the walls. And I haven't, this is really thick paint. This particular brand was a nice thick wall paint. I wish the store I got it at would get their paint mixer fixed because I'd like to buy more of it for the rest of my house. Because it was economical, but yet a really good quality paint. So, but you don't ever, you just, it's a really light tapping motion. If I were using, back in the 90s, the last time I did stenciling, I had stencil oils that were like big thick crayons, or sometimes they come in little pots, but they were like, I think I have some somewhere, but you would take a paper plate or whatever, and or artist palette, and you would rub them on there to, you know, get, and then you would take your stencil brush and load your stencil brush up with them, and you did more of a swirling pattern. And that works well with those because they're semi-solid basically. And but if you do that with this more liquidy paint, like art craft acrylics or this latex wall paint, you're gonna get bleed under, even if you really do a good job of sticking your stencil down. Whereas this lightweight pouncing, you're not, it's so, there's very little paint on here, so there's no paint to run under the edges, and you're not squeezing any under the edges. It's just filling in the spots. I have seen people use like a foam roller and just roll, you know, get the foam roller almost dry to paint and roll over. I've never tried that. It just seems like it's going to be less precise in my mind, especially when you have these really thin connecting lines. But it would sure be faster, I'm sure. If I were doing a whole, well, I guess I am doing a whole room. I'm doing the floor of a whole room. But you just want to be sure that your adhesive on the back of your stencil was good and tight. And I've repositioned this one a number of times to decide where the center of the room was, because I had to decide, is the fan light above me in the center of the room? It's not. Well, it is, but it isn't. And you don't see the fan in relation to the stencil at the same time, because one's on the ceiling, one's on the floor, if you didn't know that. I was using this paper towel to dry my brush off yesterday, and I don't think I need it with this today. So I moved it around a couple times until I got it where I wanted it. And now my stencil's not as sticky, but when I take it off to reposition it, I will put it back in the box and re-stick it, respray it. And this stencil has, the openings are pretty large. I have some stencils that are really detailed, really fine. And so sometimes those smaller holes in a stencil can get clogged up with paint. So you have to take it out and wash it every now and then. I did try to wash it yesterday, and it was kind of a pain in the butt. I don't think I'm going to do that. I think unless I really notice like rough edges as I continue with the stencil. And what I'll probably do is put it in a dishpan or bathtub or something, and with some warm soapy water, and soak it until the latex paint softens, and then clean it that way. Because again, by the time I'm done with this, especially this parts where I started, the paint that's on the stencil is going to be dry. Just keep going over it with light layers until you get the density of color that you want. I kind of like the aged look of it, kind of looking a little faded in some spots. But that's just me. I've done other stencils where I've wanted it very solid looking, but it's better to build up layers than it is to try to get it that solid color on the first go. I think you're less likely to get bleed through. Okay, you ready for the big reveal? And the reason I don't really even need this painter's tape on here except as extra security, but when I was laying them out next to each other, it was keeping my paint from going into over the edges. So I'm gonna leave it on there because it does keep it from going over the edges. There we go. There is the first repeat. Oh, I'm gonna paint. Can you see me? I don't know if you can see me. I'm not gonna move the camera. So I'm gonna line up my level, my laser line, and spray the back of my stencil, get it lined up, and continue on. And if my camera cooperates, I will do some time lapse and you can watch me do the room. I don't know if I'll get the whole room done today. We'll see. I have to go to Walmart at 1 o'clock to pick up stuff, so I don't have that much time. I only have 2 hours, so, but I mean, I can do it when I get back. You know what I mean? Okay. I hope you enjoyed that. It's not perfect. I do see, and it's mainly because of the texture of the floor. It's because of the roughness of the floor, and possibly also because I didn't have the stencil stuck down real good. There's some rough edges, but there's going to be rough edges because I'm stenciling this on a 135-year-old wood floor, and that's kind of the point. See you futzed around with it a little bit, and I think I fixed it. I think. So now you'll also see that I turned for the second row, I turned the stencil 90 degrees because it is a 6-petaled design. If it were 8, it would be so much easier. I'm telling you right now. But see, now here, from here, step on something behind me, you can really see the difference between these 2 rows versus these 2 rows. There's going to be this little diamond here. But now, had I been planning to do this from the beginning, I probably would have done a little bit more measuring my distance between these 2 to start with to get it to whatever. It's much better. My biggest concern now is that if it's off by a little bit, by the time I get to the edges, it's going to be off by a lot. But I think I have it. So what does that mean? That means that these 5 over here are going to get painted over again. I think back up here, it's going to have like 5 coats of gray paint, but that's okay. And then I'll let that dry. So I'm going to work on this side. Well, actually, I'm probably going to go get the gray paint and paint those over those. Just be careful not to walk over there while I'm working. And then I'll keep working off to this side. I'll move my rolling table. And then I'll turn around and I'll do this half of the room that's behind me. And then probably not today, but tomorrow this will be dry enough that I can tape, I can stick down on it. My stencil's getting a little gunked up, but you'll also notice, and I think it'll go away as I work, but I got these in my Walmart order, and I'm using one of these blue bigger pouncers. And it's a little trickier. It's giving a much stronger cover, so you can see that those are darker, which again, I think is going to be okay. But you can also see that some of the edges are really rough. I have to be really careful with this to not overload and to get it, like right there is really messy, and I don't like it. Part of that is because my stencil's getting covered in paint and the edges are getting rough. So I think I'm gonna paint the gray over my mistake, and I'm at least gonna finish this row with 3 more medallions. And that might be it for the day. It is 2:30, I have plans this evening, so I need to get cleaned up for that. But now, I think I can safely say I figured it out. So when I go back at it tomorrow, I'll be able to just rock it out, because I'm figuring out like where to measure off from the edge of the stencil and line it up, center it and stuff. So that whole part of it is coming together much quicker without having to mark the floor. I've got a squirrel looking at me out on the fence. He's like, "What are you doing, lady?" He's got a long tail. Bye, squirrel. Okay. Yeah, do I have an attention span issue? Yes, I do, because I'm like the dog on Up. Squirrel, squirrel, squirrel. Anyway, no wonder I can't figure stuff like this out. But I know I have said many times before that done is better than perfect. In this case, keep doing it until I get it right. It might still not be perfect, but at least it's right. So done right is better than perfect. Let's go with that today. And the third time's the charm. How many more little idioms can I use today? And I knew I wasn't going to get this all done one day. But here, let me give you my bit of advice. If I were to do this again, or if I were to advise someone else on how to do it, of course, you can learn from all my mistakes and then just not make the mistakes that I've made. That's a start. You're way ahead of me. But also, and I thought this yesterday, and I was like, oh, I don't want to get my computer out and I figured it would take me longer to figure it out than to just fart around and figure it out by putting it on the floor. Would be to kind of plot it out on a graphics program of some kind. And it wouldn't even have to, I mean, you don't have to have the exact medallion. You know, you could take a photo or a scan or something of your medallion and put it into your graphics program and scale it and all that stuff and turn it and push them close together, push them far apart, and figure out all the math, because you could even figure out the diameter of the medallion, and then my stencil outside square of the stencil is 18 inches. So I could do all that to scale. I gotta sit down. I've been standing way too much and sitting on the floor. But yeah, you could do a lot and do it ahead of time in your graphics program to figure out your layout, and you would see all the mistakes that I made before you put the first speck of paint on the floor. And that's what I would recommend you do. But I am too impatient and too squirrel brained to do that. So luckily I'm doing it on a painted floor, and I still have extra paint from the floor that when I make mistakes like I have, I can just paint right over them and start over again. If I were doing this on a stained, sealed wood floor that had to be sanded to remove my mistakes, definitely. Or a concrete floor or something like that. Yeah, don't do what I did. Don't do it the way I did it. Take this as your Aunt Beth telling you how to do it the right way and not the way she did it. How about that? But I do think when it's done, it's going to be gorgeous. But yes, turning the stencil 90 degrees on alternating rows, scooching them closer together, and centering it on the window. What other things have I done? Have I figured out? And then I'm gonna have to, before I get done, when I'm done today, I've got to put the whole thing into soak, because the back side of it is picking up, even though I have swept and swept and swept and picked up and tried to clean these floors as best I could before I started, and while I'm working on it and keeping hairy creatures off of it, it's still picking up a lot of little bits on the sticky side. So it's not sticking as well, even with a new application of spray adhesive. And make sure you use a repositionable temporary spray adhesive. Don't use like a photo mount or something, because you'll put your stencil on the floor, and then that'll be the last time you move that stencil, because it'll be stuck to the floor. I didn't make that mistake. I'm smart enough at least to remember that. But yeah, I'm gonna keep working. And I might give you some more time lapse of me doing it right. The 6 petals, the 30-degree angles, because the center is 1, 2, 4, 8, 10. Yeah, it's not, it's like I can't do, they're not 45 off of each other. Maybe they are. I don't know. Again, that's something I could have figured out in a graphics program had I bothered to fire up my computer and remember how to use my graphics program. That's the other problem. I haven't used it in so long that it would take me all night to figure that out. Yeah, I hope I don't end up on Sunday afternoon just saying, oh, you know what, this is awful, and painting the whole floor gray again. I hope not. I hope that once I get it to the 4 corners, that I'm going to be okay with it. I think okay is about as good as I'm going to get at this point in my life, because I'm committed now. Well, it's not done until it's done, but I feel like where I'm going with it now is where I'm going to go. Okay, well, thanks for hanging with me. Let's get painting one way or the other. Something, okay? Okay, people. I'm so glad I have you along for the ride. And I promise I'm never gonna hide when I screw things up, as you've already seen. I don't know how long this video is gonna be. It might be a week long. It might be taking you like, this might be like Game of Thrones, that you're just gonna, and the ending will probably be just as disappointing as Game of Thrones, I'm sorry to say. So, I got my second row done, squeezed it in tighter. I like it. I showed you, I think. Then I'm talking to my sisters and I'm showing them through the camera. And I see my mistake again, which it's not the end of the world, but it's gonna bug me. And let me show you what I'm talking about. And we even discussed this. I know we did. So you can go, Beth, I saw it before you did it and I couldn't let you know, but here we go. So this is the new the new way to lay it out, right? And they interlock nicely. This goes in because I turned this 90 degrees so that this little bump out fit into the, because I was trying to get them as close as possible. That's wrong. Can you see why it's wrong with my sample board over here? It's a little hard because the sample board overlaps, these two. But if this is laid out, if the second row is laid out properly, which I would put the stencil down to show you, but the stencil's in soaking, then there's kind of a little, it will make a 6-pointed star here between. And I don't know if that's laid out properly. I'm just eyeballing it, which, as we know, my eyeballing is not, obviously has not been the greatest. But see, there, and plus this board is warped. So there, if I lay it flat. Can you see how it would make a 6-point, well, not really a star, but kind of a star, versus this weird blobbiness over here? Yeah, I can't turn it. It's designed to be this way. Which the first time I stuck it down to do the second row, this is how I had it. And for some reason, it fell off to me, and I don't know why. So guess what I'm gonna do? Yep, I'm gonna open that can, and I'm gonna paint over these 6. It is 4:20, again, dude. I guess, yeah, maybe I need to smoke weed. Maybe that would help me get this stuff done right the first time, but it's not legal here in Alabama, we'll just say that. So, it's got to be right. It just has to be right, because I am going to spend a lot of time in this room, and this is going to be the showpiece. It's like not my magnum opus. I got a lot more in store for that, but it's a big feature, and maybe nobody else would walk in here and notice it. But I think if it's laid out right with the little 6-pointed stars, you'll notice that if it's right. You might not notice that it's wrong, but you'll notice when it's right. And that's where I'm going with this. So it's Thursday night, Thursday late afternoon. I'm already cleaned up. I went and cleaned up and put on some real clothes, even put on freaking jewelry and all, because I'm going downtown. Couple blocks, actually. I already live downtown, but it's Selma, for an event this evening. So I got all cleaned up, and then I walked in here, like I said, and saw my mistake. It's very apparent. So, at least to me. So I'm gonna paint this over, and tomorrow, which I don't think I need to go anywhere tomorrow, I don't have any jobs I need to do tomorrow other than this one. So I can get up in the morning. I think before I go to bed tonight, when I get back from town, from the reception, I'm gonna clean. I have my stencil in soaking, and I'm gonna get it all cleaned up and hang it in here to dry. So tomorrow morning, I'll put a fresh coat of sticky on it, and have at it. And we can all celebrate together. We will have a dance party Saturday night. If I get this between tomorrow and Saturday, I get this all done, we will have a dance party here in the green room on this new floor. Will you join me? Okay, let's see how I do.